Hey everybody, Mike here. I am going with something a little different today. Normally I'm doing reviews or I'm doing like videos about my opinions and things, but I do try to get into the more journalistic aspects of video games, and so I wanted to try something a little different. And so today I have a special guest, and he goes by the name of Adam, and he has a company, a development company for video games called Second Dimension. And so, Adam, thanks for taking the time out of your day to chat with me about your company and your games that are coming out.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Mike.
Much appreciated. So, we got a lot to talk about, but I wanted to first give everybody a heads up regarding the camera. You're seeing me live video footage here, or not live, but video footage. And Adam has a camera malfunction, unfortunately, so we're not. You may see his face pop up every now and then between the shots here. But I wanted to just give you a heads up, like, why am I seeing video here and not seeing video on the other side? So blame Adam. It's all his fault.
It really is. I apologize.
So, your company, Second Dimension, what? How did you get your company started?
Early 2010 or so, I was having some financial issues, and I was looking for ways I could make money without having to spend money. And yeah, imagine trying to do that.
Right, right.
So I started Googling, how to make retro video games. I had seen a few other games that were kind of in production at that time. Battle Kid was one of them.
Right, right.
Gear Roller was another. And I said, hey, why can't I do this?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it began.
Very cool. It's funny. I didn't realize how long you've been doing this. So 2010, that's when you got started. So what was the startup process as far as like getting games up and running? Like how did that work?
So I was looking for programming languages and for what consoles were available. And the one that seemed easiest that I just clicked with was this programming language called Bex. It's a basic programming language for the Sega Genesis.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And from there, just learning the syntax, learning the hardware, and then putting your ideas into a video game.
Very cool. You're primarily programmer on the development team then?
Yes.
Okay. How many people are on the development team, and what roles do they have?
So usually each game has different people on the project, though the last few games have all been pretty much the same team. There's me, obviously, the programmer. Then we have Hav, who does the artwork. He does a lot of the concept art now. He does really anything like that we need to do with graphics. He just takes care of these days. Sebastian is our composer. He's the one that you heard those jams from the Genesis version, the demo.
Right.
He also did the music for the Ilmor soundtrack and game. So we're a big fan of his work. We love what he does. And then for the stuff that I can't program or that I'm not familiar with, we hire out to other homebrew developers that are interested in making games.
Okay. So let's kind of roll it back a little bit as far as the actual games that you are working on. So currently you have a couple games that you're working on. The biggest one probably that I would say, at least for me personally, is most well known is Eyra.
Yep.
The Crow Maiden. That's the name of the game. And that one is in development for the NES, the Super NES, and the Genesis.
Yes.
Okay. And I believe, yeah, so there's a Kickstarter for that, and from what I understand, it started off with just the NES version, and then you kind of saw that, more and more people were, signing up for this Kickstarter. They liked what they saw. I liked what I saw when I saw this on Kickstarter, so, pretty much at what point in time did you decide, oh, we're gonna make a Genesis and Super NES version in addition to the NES version?
Well, we had always had the idea to make the Genesis version since that's kind of what we do anyway. So that was going to happen regardless of the Kickstarter. And then we figured, hey, we know a couple Super Nintendo programmers. Why can't we see if we can get a Super Nintendo version of it going on? So, and that's kind of how it happened.
What would you say would be your at this point in time your most famous or most profitable game that you guys have worked on? Like, what's your most well-known game?
It's probably has to be a toss-up between Eyra and Ilmor.
Okay, and that makes sense. I mean, some of the other games that I saw were pretty neat looking. The NES Virus Cleaner, I think I've actually played that, believe it or not, and it's pretty funny. I also have to mention that we're both from the same state. You and I, we're both from Connecticut, so it was interesting because I was looking at the location of on your Twitter, and it said Connecticut, and I was like, is he from Connecticut? So I reached out to you like a year ago, and I was talking to you, and I was like, yeah, let's set up an interview, and then like I totally forgot about it, or something. I don't know, like my Twitter DMs got buried, and then all of a sudden I was like, I saw you post because I've been following you for a year now. And I saw you guys post that, Eyra is getting a demo for the Genesis, or maybe it was a little bit before then. Maybe somebody posted like that the NES, I think it was the NES manuals, because there were 3 different NES manuals, one that was like a Kickstarter exclusive, and then like 2 others or whatever. And I was like, oh, those are really cool. Man, I really missed the boat. I should have signed up for the Kickstarter. So at that point, I went back in the DMs because I was going to reach out to you and be like, hey, any chance I can get one of those manuals? And then I was like, oh man, I saw the message that I sent a year ago saying like, yeah, let's set up an interview. So I felt like a total idiot.
It happens.
Yeah.
It's funny because when we launched a Kickstarter, I actually launched a Kickstarter a day early on accident.
Oh, okay.
And I thought I just threw the entire campaign sideways. That I was like, oh, what's gonna happen now? I mean, we don't have a demo. We have a rough structure right now, and I think within like 12 or 14 hours we had gotten funded. It was ridiculous. So hey,
yeah,
sometimes mistakes are good.
I mean, I will say it's a testament to the visuals of the NES version specifically. I love the fact that the colors are so bright and vibrant. They don't have like a neon quality to them, but like they look fresh, and I'm so used to seeing a lot of NES games, especially like several years back, that were homebrew games where the graphics were okay, they weren't bad, but like they were very dark and very dingy kind of looking, and they weren't super detailed. And it wasn't until like I'd say the past few years that, in my opinion, like maybe starting with Battle Kid as like the primary example, but the games have been getting more and more detailed for NES homebrew regarding the graphics. So I think it's a testament to the visual aspects of what you guys were putting out in that Kickstarter.
Oh, for sure. The last few years definitely has seen a raised bar for the quality of video games coming out in the indie scene for these retro consoles.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, stuff like the Jay and Silent Bob game that came out, that has some amazing visuals for the NES. I mean, it's like playing that game, it feels like going back and playing like a game that came out during the NES era. I think NES development is really seeing a turn for not the better, but like I think it's turning a corner to improved visuals. And the gameplay has always been there. There's another game that I actually reviewed called Rolly, which is, I can't remember the name of the developer, but he did a great job with that game. So it's games like these that are coming out now that are just really visually impressive, and it's like the level of fun factor has now matched, or rather the graphical capabilities of these games have now matched the fun factor aesthetic.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the differences between these consoles and how you guys go about creating games for them. So when you start off with the ideas for making a game, is it you that's coming up with that, or are you working with a couple of different people, maybe like the artist, Jav, right?
His name's Javier.
Javier. Okay, yeah. Sorry. I always see JAV because I also follow him on Twitter. So I'm always like, oh yeah, that's Jav. But Javier makes total sense now. So do you work with him on like the visual aesthetics and everything for the game before you like come up with a plot or come up with a scenario?
So the way it worked with Ilmor is we just both kind of threw ideas back and forth to each other, and we started taking notes of what sounded good and what didn't, and probably within like a couple of days we had a really good idea and concept for the game. And from there, I mean, during development, it was kind of like ad hoc where I would want to do something and he'd be like, all right, well, let's try this. He'd make some graphics. And that's how the development and the gameplay and the game style came about. In terms of the artwork, I try to let him do his thing. I mean, he's a wonderful artist. I don't want to impede on his process. And I want him to enjoy what he's doing. So I kind of let him say, hey, you know, do what you need to. Yeah. As for Eyra, he actually brought that to the table pretty much already done from a previous project he was working on. And it was originally a Game Boy game.
Okay.
And he asked about that as a Game Boy game, and I asked what he had in mind, and he started showing me the graphics. I was like, you know, this would look really good on Nintendo. And that's kind of how that one started. And I was like, you know, why don't we make a Genesis version of it? And then, you know, the Kickstarter happened, and
right. Very cool. So Eyra is a young priestess of the Koruharas, which is a tribe that lives in the temple city of a jungle. And she's been trained by the elder mothers to become a wise one and aid their people through knowledge and wisdom. This is off of the Second Dimension website, by the way. And then all was peaceful until the evil infernal marauder came from far lands across the sea and kidnaps the brave warriors of the tribe. And his plan is to experiment on them with forbidden magic and ancient powers that was thought lost in time and turn them into an army of darkness. So now it's up to Eyra and her trusty trained crow. Is it Nunkama?
I actually have to look at it.
Nunkamah. Nunkama.
Yeah, Nunkama.
Nunkama. To embark on a dangerous journey to save them. So, you know, pretty standard, like, you know, save the person in distress. This time, not a damsel. Instead, you're playing as a woman saving a bunch of men. At least I've only seen male characters in the demo that I've played for saving, as far as you know, the brave warriors.
Yep, that's pretty much it. It's the epic quest to save your people, and it's a heroine this time, not, you know, your standard hero.
Right. It's pretty cool. So this is developed by you guys, but also I'm seeing FG Soft. Did FG Soft work on the Super NES version?
No, he did the Nintendo version.
Okay.
And Alec Mall is doing the Super Nintendo version.
And is there a different composer on the NES version, or is it the same in-house composer for you guys?
It was a different composer for the NES version.
Okay.
Those two have worked together before, so I didn't want to, you know, introduce two brand new people to a whole brand new project.
Sure.
Like so, and I think it made development go a little more smooth than it might not have otherwise.
Right. Yeah, the game itself, like visually, you know, the levels that I've played in the demo. The demo's out now, right? It's on your website. People can go check it out, right?
Yeah, you can download the NES demo and Sega demo. We're working on getting the Super Nintendo demo ready to release.
Nice. The Genesis demo was pretty cool as well, for different reasons, at least for me. The gameplay is a little slower than the NES version. The NES version seems really sped up, so it's like I went from playing the NES version, which is, it runs really smooth, really fast, and very fluid and easy to understand gameplay. And Eyra on the Genesis is no different in the aspect of the easy to pick up and play aspect, but it is, at least graphically, a little bit darker. It's more in line with what you would see on like a standard Sega Genesis game, like, you know, Chakan or is it Chakan? Chakan? I never know how to say that game, but, you know, games like that, it kind of reminded me of of that style of gameplay with smaller sprites, more in line with maybe something like Ranger X or something like that. So, what would you say would be the development challenges in regards to having all these different platforms that you're developing for?
Trying to remain as consistent as possible, but still offer, what the hardware can offer, and not put too many limitations on the developers.
Sure, yeah. Now, regarding sound, I'm a big proponent of video game music. I have my own podcast, XVGM Radio, where we play video game music, and it's kind of like styled like a radio show. Not to make this about me, but I'm just kind of giving you some background for your sake, just so you know, like, I love me some video game music, and one of the first things I always look for in video games is the music. And I gotta say, the Genesis version blew me away regarding the sound. Like, great tunes. Really kind of reminded me of like the Matt Furniss, Sean Hollingworth era of games that were made for like a lot of like not so good games on the Genesis, but still really amazing soundtracks. It's got that twang that a lot of the Sean Hollingworth sound drivers have. So, what do you happen to know how the music is created for these games on the Genesis?
Well, I know Sebastian used a program called Mask.
Okay.
It's a multi-console music tracker.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure he makes all the instruments inside the application and just does, his magic with that.
Mm-hmm.
He's also, a really good musician. I've heard him play guitar, before and what have you. And so he's very musically talented. He's very gifted.
Nice.
So I think there's a little bit of his actual playing his instruments and transposing over to the tracker, and vice versa. One song that was for Ilmor that ended up having to get cut due to space constraint in the ROM was a song that one of my old bands had composed.
Oh, cool.
He turned that into a really awesome track that is actually on the Ilmor soundtrack as a hidden track.
Nice.
Throw back to the 90s.
That's cool.
And for Eyra, he's actually taking one of the riffs I had written about a decade ago, just as monster groove metal riff, and he's turning that into one of the game tracks for Eyra.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's another sound reference that I can give is Thunder Force, or the Lightning Force, the Thunder Force 4. That really like chuggy, heavy sound. So metal fans will definitely dig the soundtrack from what I've heard in the demo. It sounds really cool.
Yeah, and he doesn't just stick to one genre of music either. Like, there's a lot of Celtic influence in Eyra as well in some of the other tracks.
Nice.
They all still have that rock feeling to them. But
sure.
They're definitely different, and you can tell that they're different.
Yeah. What would you say is your favorite console to develop for you personally?
Well, since I only program for the Sega Genesis, personally,
you gotta go with that. Okay.
Though I do program for the PC as well, but I mean,
that actually is my next question. Are you planning on bringing any of these games to modern platforms? And if not, is there a specific reason, like the Switch? And I'm sure all that comes down to money regarding the software.
Yeah, there's definitely a paywall, a high entrance fee to get into some of these platforms. It's in the plans. I'm just not sure how soon it is, but we definitely want to.
Cool. What would you say are the challenges in regards to physical game productions for older consoles like the NES, Super NES, Genesis? How do you guys go about doing that? Are you using like old NES carts that were other games and then just gutting them, or are you doing all new production, all new circuit boards? Are the games on SD cards? How does that work?
It's all brand new circuit boards, new cart shells, new boxes, everything. Just
programming them using an EEPROM reader or something like that.
Yeah, so I have a pair of EEPROM programmers that I set up and just start writing EEPROMs, and then I will hunker down on the kitchen table and solder 20 hours a day to fill some of these rewards out.
Nice. Now, regarding Eyra and the Kickstarter, I've been a proponent of Kickstarter initially. You know, I had a lot of things where like I backed games, and then like a month, like you know, a couple months after the game comes out, especially with games that are coming out on like, you know, modern platforms, a lot of times what ends up happening is the game gets re-released, you know, on a modern platform, and then they do a new physical version, and they, you know, they give you all these exclusives. One of the ones I really got burned on was Shantae, because they kind of implemented a lot of like, hey, this is going to be exclusive, and then they were like, just kidding, we're giving it to everybody else with a second reprint or whatever. So how do you maintain that balance of, you know, people like me who were like, this game looks really cool, but I want to check it out later, like I'll buy it when it comes out or whatever, and how are you getting that balance of kind of bringing people in as compared to like letting, you know, like rewarding people who were the long time Kickstarter people, but also kind of like giving other people a chance that didn't participate in the Kickstarter? How is that balance working for you?
Good. So what we did with Ilmor was we made all of the Kickstarter backers CIB versions in plastic clamshells, and then anybody that orders from the website gets a cardboard box version. So there's, you know, that right there. If you want this, then you had to get it at the Kickstarter.
Right.
If we have some extras, you know, afterwards, you know, we'll send them out to the early pre-orders. But and then with Eyra, we have, just for the regular CIB, we have stickers that we're throwing in there that you're not going to be able to get through the website.
Cool.
And then you have your limited editions that you can only get through Kickstarter for both games.
Right.
Yeah, and all those rewards are only limited to the Kickstarters.
Nice.
We won't be selling those to anybody, you know. So we want the people that put their faith into us to have something that we got this because we supported them early on. Right.
And,
you know, you can only get it at that time.
It's nice to see exclusivity in Kickstarter. I think that's the big part of it, that a lot of companies, especially a lot of bigger companies, have forgotten, because they're releasing these games, and then, you know, shortly after they're like, oh, we want, you know, more people to buy this game, so we're gonna, you know, re-release it with all this extra stuff that people already got in the Kickstarter. And it's kind of, I don't know, in my opinion, personally, I feel like it's a betrayal of what you're offering. And yeah, it's nice to offer things to people who may have missed it. Maybe people had financial hardships or whatever. I get it. I totally understand that. But it's nice to see, you know, people still are like, hey, listen, this is the situation. If you get it, cool. If not, you got to get it secondhand. That's just the way it works. And I feel like I feel like companies that do honor that are committed to their fans and their fan base, so it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to just, you know, keep reprinting the same stuff that everybody from the campaign had you know, supported and put their faith in, just to have them say, well, why are we doing this when we can get it, you know, later on? Yeah,
absolutely. Let's talk about Curse of Ilmor Bay. So this game that Adam has mentioned a couple times is a Genesis game. I'll read from the website here. Nick Nettles, a Woodsboro Mall employee, discovers the legendary Book of Wicked Carols. The book is said to be a guide to raise the spirits of the dark, is that Jinn? Dark,
yes.
Yeah, dark Jinn. And with the holiday season soon approaching, Nick wasted no time. I'm sick of playing Santa year after year, he decried. As he changed the mystical words inscribed on the parchments before him, the calm night started turning into a whirlwind of chaos. So this game is inspired by 90s cartoons, horror flicks, and I'll save this little part for you to reveal this little part on the website, because it's too good for me to spoil regarding who you're working with. But Curse of Ilmor Bay delivers a brand new adventure for the Sega Genesis. You can choose between 3 different characters to play with, and you can even play 2-player with a friend. The game saves help ensure that you don't lose your progress when you power down the console, and Curse of Ilmor Bay can also be seen in the movie Bits.
Yeah, so there's an independent film about, I believe it's a Haunted Sega Genesis, or a Haunted Sega Genesis game. And yeah, they're featuring a bunch of homebrews in it, so...
Oh, that's neat. Cool. That's very neat.
They have some good talent in that movie too. It's not just a bunch of nobodies.
Oh, that's cool. So this game, it says it's available for purchase, and it says it was released January 2021. Is that accurate? Is the game out?
Yes, I'm actually mailing out copies, every day to get everybody's rewards out, and
cool.
It was available digitally at that time, as well as on Steam last month.
Yeah. So you actually have somebody special that is going to be in Curse of Ilmor Bay. Tell me a little bit about who that person is and how you were able to get them on board with the game.
So we ended up getting a hold of Danny Timberell's agent, or former agent, that they were still in contact with each other. And I pitched her, what we were looking for. And she goes, let me send it over to Danny, see what he says. He said, sure, send him the script. And next thing you know, we had, the intro for the audio soundtrack. And when you boot up Ilmor, there's a digitized version of his voice, saying, welcome to Ilmor.
Yes.
And when you kill the final boss, which Mall Santa is the final boss, spoiler. When you beat the final boss, you actually hear Danny's voice and doing the scream for the Dark Gem.
That's cool. So, for the record, Danny Tamborelli, to those who don't know, is he played Little Pete on The Adventures of Pete and Pete, the Nickelodeon show.
He was also in Mighty Ducks.
Oh yeah, he was in Mighty Ducks. He's been in a bunch of stuff. He was in All That as well. And he's been in a bunch of Nickelodeon stuff, and then he's done other movies and stuff. He was in a band. Like, he's done tons of stuff. So the game has really cool cutscenes in the beginning, and it really sets up exactly what's happening in the game. And I'm not sure if is the Sega Genesis version of Eyra going to have cutscenes? I know you and I talked previously, and you mentioned that the NES version's kind of like jam-packed with everything, so there's no like major giant cutscenes like Ninja Gaiden style or anything like that. It's more of like an arcade action, platformer type game. But is the Genesis version or Super NES versions going to have anything like that?
Something in the beginning or the end, but not anything, past that. Kind of like how Ilmor was.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so again, with the music on Ilmor, really fantastic stuff. Graphically, it looks pretty fun, enjoyable to play. Kind of a little faster than Eyra on the Genesis, and I haven't played the Super NES Eyra yet, but I know you showed me that it is a work in progress, and you guys are still working on it. Do you have a timeline regarding Eyra and all its releases?
I'm hoping that there was a little setback with the development of Ilmor toward the end, which kind of delayed the Genesis version, which inadvertently delayed the Super Nintendo version because I didn't have time to document everything for the programmer, right away.
Oh, okay.
Because of Ilmor, because I was already late with that. And that was an issue with the sound driver freezing the game.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was not a fun time at all.
Yeah.
So, for the Genesis version, all the music except for, I believe, one track, which is going to be either finished tonight or tomorrow, is complete. And then all the sound effects, I believe, are complete, aside from maybe a handful of non-essential ones. All the graphics are done. The engine is 99% finished, so it's, at this point for me, it's just importing the level data.
Okay.
And programming bosses. And the Super Nintendo version is actually fairly close to that state as well.
Okay.
Minus the music. That's the next tasks for Sebastian. He's going to be focusing on them next.
Cool. So it sounds like the NES version's pretty much ready to go. The Genesis version is also pretty much ready to go, and the Super NES version has a little bit longer to cook in the oven there, but 2021 is basically the release date for everything.
Yeah, actually the NES version is already shipping out right now.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I did. Now that you mentioned that, yeah, I saw that you guys were shipping them out, so that's very cool. Now, when it comes to purchases on your website, people purchase it, and then what's the ship time on stuff like that? Like a couple days?
For Ilmor and Eyra, those are backed up a little because I have so many other,
Right.
I'm doing all the 2019 orders before I do the 2020 orders. I'm doing all the 2020 orders before 2021 orders.
Makes sense, yeah.
And I'm putting the Kickstarter in, there as well as a higher priority because they were there first.
Sure.
But one of the issues that I've recently come to realize with PayPal is after the 2-year mark, you can no longer view a transaction.
Oh.
So before that happens, I want to make sure I have all their mailing information,
right,
and all that. So
that way you know who you're shipping the games out to. That makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So Eyra seems like she has a lot of potential to be a return character in like a sequel or maybe several sequels. If so, if that's maybe where you guys are going with this, how is that envisioned by the team at this stage in the creation? You guys just worried about getting the first game out and seeing how well it does and maybe going with the second, or does it affect the current development at all?
We haven't really discussed much of a sequel for Eyra. Though we do want to definitely do a sequel to that game as well.
Yeah.
We've talked about sequels for Ilmor. But the next thing that we really want to focus on is an RPG.
Cool. That's a huge task to take on because the games are so long and there's so much to them.
It's definitely a very involved project, and because we're a small team, I'm gonna definitely try to make it as small of a scope as possible.
Sure.
While still offering, a lot of value for the gameplay.
Yeah, maybe something like Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, or are you more like aiming for something like Final Fantasy 2 or 3 or something like that?
Something on the caliber of Final Fantasy, between Final Fantasy 1 and 2.
Oh, okay.
Final Fantasy 1 and 4, rather.
Right. Is there another homebrew or indie retro title that you're a fan of, who you'd love to work with? Like, I know you mentioned Battle Kid before, like Civac, and then there's other creators that are out there. Are you guys talking with those types of developers? And if so, what in what kind of capacity?
Usually we try to stay as in-house as possible because we know that other developers want to work on their projects. So when we do go looking for somebody to do like a Nintendo game, or in this case a Super Nintendo game, I've been a fan of Alec Mall's work. He did a really good job with Sydney Hunter.
Oh yeah.
For Collector Vision. And then for NES, Sly Dog Studio programmed Get 'em Gary.
Okay.
And they're the ones that actually have NES Virus Cleaner. I was just doing a couple copies for them for a while, for the last couple years, but
that's a fun one, yeah.
Yeah, that is a fun one. And then I approached him first for Eyra because I worked with him with Get 'em Gary, and he was really easy to work with. But he wants to focus on his games, which I totally get.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why in FG Soft, we've worked with him in the past, and he's also super great to work with. He really knows his stuff, and he got through the development really quick. There was next to no issues. As for other people, we're not opposed to it. We don't know what we would be able to offer another team.
Sure.
So I mean, it's kind of like we're just a pair of guys that make some pretty cool games, we think.
Yeah. So of course game development is pretty tough. I'm sure the ups and downs, the highs and lows. What would you say is the most difficult aspect of game development for you personally?
Programming something I've never programmed before.
Okay. Like on a console that you've never programmed before, you mean? That sort of thing?
I guess that. Like with Ilmor, one of the challenges for me was I've never made a platforming engine before. And then, or like a scrolling platforming engine. Like I've done like single screen platforming games, like little tiny ones. But, having to work with, large maps and enemy spawning, that was a whole new world to me. So things like that tend to be the biggest of challenges.
Yeah.
And like designs and styles I've never worked with before. Otherwise, at the end of the day, it all ends up being the same. Like once you learn it, it's okay. It's not that bad.
Did you were you self-taught or did you go to school for programming?
Self-taught, and I'm pretty sure that shows.
Well, I gotta say, I'm really impressed with everything so far with Eyra and Ilmor. Both games look really fun to play. There, you guys can go check out the demos now. They're on the website, which is second-dimension.com. There'll be a link down below, and I'll also, of course, link their main Twitter account as well. Some cool stuff coming down the pipeline from you guys, so I wanted to thank you for sitting down and chatting with me for a bit and just kind of showcasing your company and some of the games that you guys put out. Do you have any final words for fans or potential fans or gamers watching this?
I mean, thanks for listening. Thanks for having me, first and foremost.
Absolutely.
You know, if you like retro games, try our demos out. If you like them, awesome. If you don't, you have poor taste in games. You know, they're not for everybody. I mean, if you like them, great. That's awesome. Glad we made your day. Hopefully you can make some memories with them.
Yeah.
And if not, hopefully we can do better in the future.
Very cool. Well, Adam, thanks so much for sitting down with me for a chat about Second Dimension. And everybody go check out the website and go check out the games and see, you know, how you like them.
Thank you very much.
All right.